Hey, welcome back to another exciting John Bolt mod video. Today it's all about wiring a John Bolt, and this video is broken out into two parts. I just want to stress this before the video starts so you know exactly how this video is structured. In the first part of this video, I'm going to go over the basic layout for how to wire any John Bolt. I wanted to post this because this is a technique that you can apply to any John Bolt build. So the first part of this video is just me breaking it down in a summary format. I've done very detailed videos on wiring on the channel, so feel free to check those out where I go step by step into the whole detail thick of it. All right, that's not what the first part of this video is all about. I'm gonna go over it, so if you're ever wanting to know, like, I know a lot of people have watched videos out there on YouTube and it gets really confusing, so hopefully this will help you guys out. Let me fix my hood. It looks a little crazy back there. All right, there you go. So that's the first part of the video. It's going to be a summary how to wire John Bolt. Apply this to any boat out there. And after that, I'm going to apply those very same techniques to this boat right behind me and then test it out and show you guys exactly how it turns out. What I want to do now is just give you a quick overview of the electrical wiring for a John Bolt. This is the basic layout for any John Bolt wiring job. All right, this is the basis. You can use it. It can apply to any boat you do. I've got two batteries up here for this boat. This one will eventually be connected to the trolling motor. We can ignore this battery for now. This is dedicated trolling motor battery running a 12-volt trolling motor, so I only need one battery for that. This battery right here is going to control all the electronics and the fish finder. So first thing you want to do is come off of the positive for the battery, run it into a 50 amp fuse breaker right here, and then from there it comes all the way around through the conduit to our master on and off switch. From the on and off switch, you run a separate cable that runs to your fuse box bus bar combo. This has positive leads down here and all negative leads up top. That's why it's called a combo. It's all one-stop shop. Everything's in one place. Next up, from your fuse box, all your positive leads, each individual one, depending on what you're hooking up, will go from your fuse box to your switch panel. I have 3 of them hooked up right now. Each one of these 3 wires are going to a different switch on this panel. So all I've done so far is run power from the battery to this master switch. The power then goes from this switch to this fuse box, and then from the fuse box to these switches here, which is what you'll use to control everything. I've now brought power to this switch panel. Last but not least, on the back, you plug in each accessory that you want. So any accessories that you have, you now can plug into the back of the switch panel and give it power. Whether it's hatch lights, bilge pump, live well, nav lights, you name it, hook it up there and you're done. That completes it all. That's the basis. I've got a voltmeter here. I'm going to connect this to the battery as well. This aerator for the live well, treat this as the 7th switch over here. All right, it's just another switch, but same concept. These type of individual switches have their own wiring diagram. You can just follow the instructions, but it's the same concept. Now, the negative side is probably the simplest. You don't fuse negative ground wires. So all I'm doing here is connecting my accessories directly to this fuse box right here on the ground side for all the negative leads. What I did here was, to make life simpler, I'm putting all the ground leads to this bus bar, and that helps with wire management. Instead of running an individual ground wire from every single accessory at the rear of the boat and trying to fit all of them into this fuse box would be quite difficult to do and a hot mess. The bus bars helps you to centralize your wires all in one location and then run one lead, which is this wire right here. I don't know if you guys can see this ground wire I'm touching with my finger is the only ground wire that's going to the negative bus, and it's going to control everything at the rear of the boat. The ground wires are the simple, easy ones to do. All right, so hope you guys like that overview. Again, much more details are posted on the channel and linked in the description below. For your convenience, check them out. A lot of details put out there. Oh, let's go over some supplies really quick. The basis you'll need is some type of wire stripper. Here's another bus bar. And these can be used for positive and negative wires, by the way. I did not mention that earlier. Here are my old school wire cutters right here, your crimping tool, and that works for all of your terminal connectors. This is a round one, which works really good for these screws right here. Once you screw them in, they can't slide out. And then you've got your spade version connectors right here. Those go on the back of your switch panel. all of these connectors back here underneath. Use these connectors right here. And you've got your butt connectors right here. Has the solder built in, shrink tubing built in as well, so it shrinks and solders at the same time. These are awesome. I would not do a build without this. Saves a lot of time. And got your shrink tubing over here, various sizes. Again, everything linked in the description below, so don't worry about it. It's right down there, easy breezy. Can't forget your heat gun. You will need that. And we're going with 14 gauge wire. 14 gauge, I get this question a lot. What gauge wire do you use for your accessories? The basic gauge wiring is 14 gauge for a lot. I would say 90% of it. So lights, bilge pump, live well pumps, all lights, whether they're hatch lights, courtesy lights, all of that stuff, 14 gauge wire. I might go smaller if I need to. The only time I go bigger would be if I'm extending like battery charger cables for the onboard charger. Definitely the wires that go, the main wires that go from the battery to the master switch, those are 8 gauge, and use marine grade wires. And trolling motor, when I get there, I'll probably use 6 gauge for that. Definitely use 6 gauge when running a 24 volt or higher trolling motor. Again, everything will be linked below. Don't worry about trying to remember all that. It's down there for your convenience. Check it on out. We put them down there to make your life easier. So right now it's time to get wiring. I'm just gonna run some B-roll and hit it off. You guys get to watch the sped up version of this. Should be fun. Let's get into it. Now, before I can get started running wires, I need to create this side panel right here. This will serve 2 purposes. 1, to wall off the hatch so you don't see any of these obnoxious wires. And 2, this will allow me to install a conduit to run all my wires through. I did this simply using a combination of cardboard and a new material I recently started using called Duralog. One of the cool things about this is I'm reusing a piece of the bench that I cut out earlier for the side panel that I'm using that will run my conduit and work for the middle hatch. So this saves on material. Always try to reuse whatever you can. And this is painted. It's painted the color of the boat, so this will be a perfect match, perfect situation. After making quick work of this, it was time to install. But before I could do that, just needed to level out the angle that's installed. Just using 1/16 inch flat bar to fill the gap in between the sheeting and the framing. I use 1/8 countersink rivets for the flat bar and regular 1/8 pot rivets for the sheeting. To create holes for my conduit, I use a combination of a hole saw and fine tune it with a step drill. The conduit I'm using for this boat is golf tubing. With that done, I can now run my first power lead 8 gauge power wire going from the battery to the master on and off switch. Because how the wiring was routed for the rear bench, I didn't need any kind of tubing for conduit. I was able to simply drill out a hole and use a 1-inch grommet for wire protection. After running the wire to the battery to the master switch, next step was to connect power from the fuse box to the master switch. Again, for this, use 8 gauge wires. Very strong, keeps heat levels down, offers good protection for your components. And lastly, running that ground wire to the fuse box. For the bilge pump, I'm going with this Shoreline 600 gallon per hour pump. This is a manual pump, no automatic on feature with this. So very simple pump, and for this size boat will do just fine. One of the things I do like with this pump is very easy to detach it. Just squeeze down on the 2 pins, 1 on each side, and pop it right out. So you have the base of it just like this, which makes installing it very, very easy. One thing I noticed with the casing for this is that you have 2 ways you can mount it. You have these slitted out slots right there, and you've got these 2 holes, and I've already checked those 2 holes hold 1/8 inch rivets perfectly. So I'm actually going to rivet this in, and that's going to pay dividends in this setup because on the back side of this transom support, I won't have screws sticking out where you could possibly cut yourself or poke yourself with that. It'll be a lot more safe and secure riveting this in versus screwing it for this setup. So I'm going to mount this right here against the transom support and run the wires up, in, and up to the control panel. So with using the 2 pre-existing holes in this base, I marked out where I will drill the holes to mount the pump, which will make this a very quick and easy install. At this point, I'm going to move on to lights. And going to jump over here. I've got a bunch of different lights I'm going to go with. I'm just going to figure out where I want to put what. But I've got these round ones right here, which are really cool. They're waterproof. I've got these rectangular ones. These could be used for deck or hatches or courtesy or whatever. And I've also got some good old LED blue strip lights right here as well. I've used these on the previous 2 builds. They're super bright and pretty affordable. All this stuff is from Amazon. All links will be in the description below, so you can go directly to these products and check them on out. So that's it. I've got some other lights as well, white, red, round, you name it. I got it. If I decide to, you know, get creative and maybe stick a white light here or there or a red light somewhere else, I might do that as well. I'm just going to figure out as I go which light will work best in what location. For the rear deck lights, just use these small blue strips right here. I thought this was an awesome location and a great fit for this boat. The lights fit there perfectly without any kind of modifications. This was an awesome look and a really good character building thing for this boat. Got both of them hooked up and screwed in. Got my stainless steel screws right here. Of course, I painted them black so that they stay hidden, and ran the wires down this little path right here, this little joiner between the side of the boat and the transom. Just ran the wire up underneath and down it so it'll stay hidden, and straight down here, you see it coming out. I joined up the right rear light with the left with these joiners right here, both the negative side and the positive side. That's what these are right here. And I ran them behind the side rib of the boat through this hatch and connected the black lead to the bus bar right here. And then ran the positive lead through the side rib right here. All of this will be hidden. And I just have the bare lead right here. I'm gonna use LED strips, these right here, for the left and right side of the front deck. Join those up together, run a single line, join that single line to this single line right here, which will bring the rear and the front together into one lead that will go into the switch panel. Before I actually installed the LED strips for the deck lights, I went ahead and installed the same rear deck light up front at the bar of the boat. And I did this because I knew I needed to figure out my nav light as well. Both of them would end up being in the same location, and I needed to figure out how to configure that so that it would look seamless but yet very functional. What I ended up doing was basically creating a harness, keeping all the wires together. That way I can run it through the front deck. This worked out really well. I was able to use fish tape, connect it to the wires, and just run it straight through this grommet underneath the front deck, pull it right out, then pull the remaining slack line through the deck as well, through the grommet. What I wanted to show you here is how I'm going to do this is the wire is going to go down from the strip underneath the deck. And these wires are extremely thin. This is, if I had to guess, this is like 22 gauge wire. So it's very lightweight, not very durable at all. So a couple of things I'm going to do. One, I need to extend this, and to extend it, I'm gonna add 18 gauge wire, just using a butt connector like this. So I'm gonna go from like 22 gauge to 18, and then I'm gonna connect it to 14 gauge. Reason I'm doing it that way is because I'm also joining another wire, which would be the very front LED deck lights that are up front to this. I'll join it up here, make 2 to 1, and then go 1 to the 14 gauge. The second thing I wanna do is reinforce this. This is going to be exposed to the elements, and I want to go ahead and protect these wires by adding some shrink tubing. I've got 1/8 inch shrink tubing I'm going to add to this. First, I'll slide the 1/8 shrink tubing onto the existing wires. I'll shrink that down so it's nice, snug, and tight, offer great protection to the weather. Now I'll extend the wires by using an 18 gauge wire with an 18 gauge butt connector. Carefully doing this to make sure that I don't melt the thin 22 gauge wire. The tubing I'm using for this second connection is a 1/4 inch shrink tubing, which will overlap the 1/8 shrink tubing I used already. This will create a watertight seal and have a gradual progression from a very thin 22 gauge wire all the way to an 18, and then ultimately to a 14 gauge wire. In the end, I went with 2 bus bars for the front of the boat. This one right here is for all positive hatch leads. And what that does is tie everything together and will ultimately be put on one individual switch on the switch panel. So when I hit that one switch, all hatch lights come on. I did have to gap out the side railings a little bit in order to flush mount the deck wiring straight through the side rails. Ultimately, when I install the deck, it'll hold everything in place and won't stress the wires or potentially damage the wires in the future. Now it's time to wire the hatch lights. These LED lights come with an adhesive back, which made it really easy to position and install them, and then made all my connections to the bus bar. In this boat, I'm installing a brand new Noco Genius 2-bank charger. I really do like these chargers a lot. Very reliable, and most importantly, they work on a variety of different types of batteries, whether you have lithium, AGM, or regular wet cell deep cycle batteries. This was kind of a last minute decision to install the AC port right here. I thought this was a great location in the boat right next to the control panel. So now you can charge all batteries with one plug. Right here, install the rear nav light pole mount right into the top corner of the boat. I chose this location because I didn't want to install it to the deck. I wanted to maintain some flexibility so if the deck ever needed to be removed, you wouldn't have to tamper with the rear nav light to do it. At the end of your electrical work, it's all about wire management. The majority of this I use wire loom, a combination of 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch. Definitely want to make sure everything looks nice and clean and professional, have that professional finish. Underneath the deck I went with these wire tie mounts right here. I never used these before, just did a random search on Amazon, just trying to find something that is reliable and efficient. I needed something that I could mount and trust that it would stand the test of time.
It's a neat little idea. It has 3M backing, at least so it says. Got these from Amazon. It comes with a little zip tie, and it also comes with hardwares. It comes with screws where if you need to, you can, to support the 3M backing, you can use screws and actually screw it in if your application permits that. What I like to do, and I got into a little bit of a rhythm, is just zip it loosely just to make sure the wire's in place, and take off the 3M backing. And of course, depending on what you got going on with your hatches will determine like where you put it in here. Do you want to put it all the way flush against the back wall or have it out some? For here, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to put it about in the middle right here and just press it on. Normally I've been holding them not very long, just a few seconds. Just like that, and then just zip the wire up and cut. So in this one bag comes with the mounts, it comes with the zip ties, and it has these screws down in there as well. So pretty neat little option. And if you're going to go with the screws, come in from the other side. That way you leave yourself the option and the zip ties not blocking the holes. There you have it. Really happy how this came out. Even my handy makeshift wire loom turned out really well. Used a Bill's pump tubing, sliced my finger in the process, but all good. Another thing I like is it sits right in this side rib of the boat, so it's pushed in a little bit, which helps to conceal everything even more. Got everything around underneath, zip tied, using those wire tie mounts with the 3M adhesive. And just a shot underneath on the other side. Wire loom goes all the way. Very important to me for everything to look nice and clean, so you don't have a bunch of wires sticking out all over the place. Gives you that finished professional look.
Got it all done, and it's dark outside, so now is the perfect time to cut the lights, show you how this thing looks. And here we go. You guys watched a very quick video, but this was probably 2 weeks of work. One thing I love is after all that time, you hit the switches and everything works out, turns on. I didn't have to do any troubleshooting, anything like that. And I love the way this looks. The blue lights look absolutely amazing. Let me just walk you through what we got going on here. I'll start with the deck lights. Hopefully this camera's giving, I'm using my cell phone. I typically don't do that, but decided to do something a little bit different. Hopefully it's giving a good representation of the blue lights, but man, that looks sick. I love how that looks. I might have to use blue lights more often on my future builds. Deck lights, strips, one strip over there, another strip on this side as well. Lights up the deck really nice. I've got this little deck light underneath the nav light at the front of the boat right there. And then I've got these two, I don't know, I call these little spy lights. These are deck lights as well. You guys saw me install them. Those are all lit up. I went with white lights for the hatches. I didn't stick with blue. Decided to go with white. The blue kind of looks a little dull to me, but I wanted to at least spice it up and have a little variation. So all the lights on the boat are either blue or white. You can see the strip underneath the hatch right there. Got my battery compartment with my electronics are connected to underneath here. Got a double strip under there. Middle hatches, each hatch compartment has a strip underneath, and onboard charger is working. 2 green lights. That means 2 fully charged batteries. One thing I haven't done yet, I am going to install a couple courtesy lights in the cockpit area here. I intentionally didn't do it yet because I want to install the carpet on this back wall first. More to come. You guys will see that on the reveal video when I do a walkthrough of the full build and the completed job. I also took the opportunity to put a light in the live well, and I originally didn't plan on doing that, but I put a little white spotlight in there. You guys can see that underneath. It turned out really well. Lights up that live well really well, so if you're doing any night fishing, night tournaments, whoever gets this boat will be fully set up to be able to check on their fish. Even put a strip of lights in the pump area for the live well. Again, in case it's dark, you want to see what's going on, you can light it up, see what's going on. That's actually the live well pump, and that's Bill's pump. Everything's operational, ready to go. Also, as a follow-up, quite a bit of time has passed, and the wire tie mounts are holding up. I have not had a single one fall off or anything like that. I did add a little bit of silicone to some of the mounts. Just wanted to do that as an extra precaution because I'm not keeping this boat, and I wouldn't know a year from now if these things actually are still holding up. But I tried to pull on one and it was on there pretty good. So the wire tie mounts did hold up really well. Got a double strip back here. This is the rear area of the boat. Lights everything back up here really well. Got the front nav light. This is a light that I'm using for the first time. Did a lot of research. Just wanted to do something really simple and came across this light on Amazon. Very bright. I'm really impressed with it. And it's Coast Guard approved. I don't have the light pole in the back, but you guys saw me install a mount for that. Just right here. I did test it. It does work. Just wanted to give you guys a sneak peek on how this all turned out. Absolutely amazing. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel and check the playlist that I have on this build if you want to see how I got to this point. It's on to decking, and then the full reveal will take place. So subscribe to the channel so you can see when I reveal this boat and do a complete walkthrough. And it's going to be an awesome video. I can't wait to do that one. Appreciate you guys. See you on the next video.